Hello, 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 and welcome to a not RTA video from Idiocracy. He must be losing his mind. He's just copying Aza. Oh my god. Hey, so I'm gonna go over the upcoming changes because there's a lot of them, and normally I would just talk about this in a video, but there's so many that I thought, hey, we should give it its own video. And I'm not here to tell you that any of these buffs are going to kill any of your favorite archetypes. It's not going to kill cleave. It's not going to kill aggro. It's not going to kill standard. They're all going to still exist once these take place. You don't have to fearmonger. But I understand how saying stuff like that can get you views, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to tell you what I think, because that's what a personal opinion is. You guys can react however you want to it. These are just my thoughts to give you why my voice cracked, I'm old, why I think, or what I think these units are going to do once they come out. Obviously, we can't play with them quite yet. They're still in their old forms, and things can be a lot better than you believe them to be. Haste, you prick. But anyway, yeah, we're just going to go over the developer notes. There's 16 heroes getting a buff, 4 artifacts, and some system changes. And a couple of recalls, which is the first time this has happened in a while. So, I got hair on my phone. Moonlight heroes. We're getting 6 Moonlight heroes getting updated. Ruel of Light, Silverblade Araminta, Last Rider Crow, Commander Pavel, Designer Lilibet, yes, and Twisted Eidolon Kairon. And then we have another 6 just RGB units getting buffed. Melissa, because they cannot do a balance patch without either Melissa or Judge Kisei on it. I'm pretty sure it's against the law wherever they live. So here's Melissa. Says Elena, Mort, Yolha, Blooming Litica, or Blitica. 2 4-star, or 4 4-star units. Alots, I don't know who that is. Some furious dude, I don't know. I've never seen this character before in my life. Veronica and Armin. And then 4 5-star artifacts. Cruel Mischief, RNL, Pure White Trust, and Hostess of the Banquet. And then they're fixing how extra turns work. As a small summation, you no longer have to worry about Ran S2ing, S1ing, S3ing, and then S1ing again. Or, if you prefer to play this way, S2, S3, S1, S1. You don't have to worry about any of that anymore. But we're going to start with Ruel of Light. So, her S1 now heals everybody, which will differentiate her from her Destina counterpart. I think that's pretty good, but the amount recovered is being decreased. So, yes, you're healing everybody, but it's not going to do as much as people are probably hoping it will. The S2 now, instead of increasing her combat readiness, it will now grant the ally a barrier and damage limit, which is pretty cool. Damage limit is the buff that Goliath has, Midnight Gala Lilias, that makes her take 3 hits to die. Obviously, you can strip it just like you can strip Galas, but that's actually a pretty good way of preventing that unit from dying for the foreseeable future. So I'm pretty okay with that. I actually think this buff for her is kind of neat. The Spirit Lord's Protection, I imagine, is much like Destina's buff in that you cannot get rid of it. You cannot until it goes away, which hers never goes away until she dies, essentially. But you cannot strip it. And it will now say Spirit Lord's Protection, which will be upon receiving lethal damage. It revives her with 50% of her HP and increases her combat readiness by 50%. So, If she dies, she will come back to life with 50% HP, and she will gain 50% CR. She can do whatever she wants with that from there. I like this. Obviously, Bryceria still exists, so you have to be wary of that, but this is a much better kit for Ruel than she's had before. Damage limit is probably the best thing that you could give to an ally. Gonna be very annoying. I wouldn't rely on the S1 healing to be all that great, but if you combine it with something else that heals everybody when you do a single target attack, it could be pretty good. And her S3 will just make sure she does something. She could give herself damage limit, and then she just becomes unkillable forever. But yeah, I like this. I think it's pretty good. I'm not going to go over what they say because it's just speaking. Silverblade Araminta, her S1, or I think this is her S1. It detonates burn effects on enemies at the end of turn. So after she does that, it will just detonate everything as opposed to just leaving the burn on them. So that's pretty nice. It's kind of like a mini pirate flan, or I guess you could say a Bihu. Her S2 at the start of the first battle increases attack proportional to effectiveness. So essentially this is Ravi's passive, but instead of HP scaling, it is effectiveness scaling, and people can stack a lot of freaking effectiveness on these types of units, so we will see how much that does. The rate of increased attack effect does not change after it is activated. When an ally, except for the caster, ends their turn, increases her combat readiness by 15%. So someone else has to go, and then she pushes herself. But just stack effectiveness on her, because the biggest problem with her was people were split between effectiveness and attack. If you had full effectiveness, your burns weren't doing that much damage, but if you had full attack, you had the risk of not debuffing everybody. So now you just go full effectiveness and you win. Her S3, it has a lower cooldown, and it now has a 100% chance, essentially 85% because 15% exists, to burn for 2 turns and stun for 1. Perfectly fine. Everything else has changed. Instead of being 65%, it's now 100%. I don't recall what she was pre-nerf, like 4 years ago, but, pretty good. It does more damage. You don't have to worry about the effect chance, and its cooldown has been taken out. This seems pretty good. Again, you just have to be wary of cleansers that have a lot of ER, but if you do like 200-300 effectiveness on her, good luck. She doesn't strip though, so you do need to get rid of immunity. But if no one has immunity, you're in the clear. Go for it. Good buff. All of these so far, pretty good buffs. Let's see. LRK. This one, holy crap, I am so excited. So after being attacked, decreases skill cooldowns of the caster by 1 turn. That's great. After suffering an attack that targets all enemies, decreases skill cooldowns by an additional 1 turn and grants a barrier to allies for 2 turns, which is pretty nice. But the most important thing is the S3. His S3, when he summons Siegfried and attacks all enemies, he decreases the skill cooldowns of all allies by 1 turn. Penetrates defense, all that is the same. Its cooldown has gone up a little bit, but that's fine. So essentially now, Knockwall, because you should build him with immunity, unless they have someone to strip that before Knockwall goes. Knockwall will S3. It will reset him because of his passive, and then when he goes, they might just S1 and try to push him back, which is a possibility. He is not a perfect counter to Knockwall. He can still be silenced and pushed back with her S1, but that has a lower hit chance than like the seal. And if he does get to do his S3, everybody else's cooldowns go down by 1, which is fantastic. Pair him with Laya and you're off to the races. decreases skill cooldowns by 1 turn. Yeah. So yeah, pretty good. A better counter to Knockwall now because you can still S3 after. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Commander Pavel, he does more damage. So, like, there's not much to say. They just made his Soul Burn more damage. Better, I guess, for the people that like Commander Pavel. Designer a little bit. Her S1 now, instead of silencing, defense breaks, which is very useful because I have so many PTSD moments of like 4 seasons ago where it would be a 1v1 of my Dilobet versus their Aravi, and she cannot win that fight at all. She cannot solo that fight. So defense breaking and her Soul Burn being increasing that effect and making it a 2-turn defense break, kind of like who else does that? Who else has a go from 1 to 2 on their Soul Burn 1? Somebody has it, but I can't remember who it is. It's not Alencia. Alencia ignores ER now, so it's slightly different, but pretty good. I like defense break on the 1. Her S2, she now gains increased defense and immunity for 1 turn, which is kind of nice because they will have done their stuff, and then she'll get immunity, so they can't like immediately push her back or debuff her again unless they have another strip, which they usually don't. She still gets dumpstered by Knockwall. She still gets dumpstered by Solitus. She still gets dumpstered by anyone that resets cooldowns. So be wary of that, but she is better. Immunity is nice. Increases everybody's CR by 15%, including herself now, and it has 50% Death Pen, which is great. But the damage dealt is decreasing. So it'll probably still do more damage since it has 50% Death Pen, but not bad at all. More useful. I wish she was slightly better against Knockwall and Lua and the like, and Rowana, I guess, too, as well. But beggars can't be choosers. I'm very happy with this. I will more than likely be using her more. Yeah, defense break is always good. Kayron, next up. He now attacks the enemy with a sword on his S1, which is something they've never done before. Grants a barrier to the caster for 1 turn. When triggered as a counterattack, it changes to an attack that targets all enemies. Barrier strength increases proportional to the caster's max health. So essentially, they just combined it into 1 ability, as opposed to having Flash Slash. They just made it 1 ability. It also doesn't increase damage proportional to his lost health, or to the target's lost health. But the damage is being increased overall during a counterattack, so that's pretty nice. When his fighting spirit is full, it increases his combat readiness by 100% now, so he will take the turn. So you can't just let him sit there forever. And then for his S3, a successful attack inflicts 5,000 additional fixed damage, and fixed damage increases proportional to the amount of consumed fighting spirit by up to 15,000. So it's always going to be 5,000 as long as it hits, but it can get up to 15,000. It acquires 3 souls instead of 2. Don't know that changes. Damage dealt is decreased overall, but the 15k flat damage is still pretty good. And, souls, but whatever. It seems pretty good. You're going to fight a lot of people that just kind of expect to see Ruel and Kayron together a lot. Because that S3 pretty much kills anybody except for like high HP units. But they're usually on damage sharing artifacts, which will just kill them outright. Pretty good. I don't have him, so I can't say I'll be using him more, but this seems like a pretty good change for him. He still has the same weaknesses that he always has had, which is if he can't counterattack. We'll get to that a little bit later. If he can't counterattack, if he's stripped, all that kind of stuff, if he's silenced, he still can't do anything, but because I don't think it cleanses him. Yeah, it doesn't cleanse him, so he still has similar issues, but he's in a better place, which is good. Next up, Melissa. It's Melissa. Her S2 does more damage. That also increases her attack for her EE number 3. Nobody asked, but great. Says, I'm not reading that paragraph. Damage dealt increases proportional to what the whatchamahoots. So his S1 extra attack is now in his passive. So he doesn't have to S1 to activate his passive, but it can only be activated once every 3 turns. So we'll get to that in a second. S1 deals damage equal damage dealt is increased proportional to the target's lost health, which is pretty nice. And then his S2 now has the after an ally except for the caster attacks. Oh, except for the caster. Interesting. So he does this on someone else's turn. When the target's health is 30% or less, activates Encroach. It can only be activated once every 3 turns. It releases Dark Power to attack all enemies and increases combat readiness of the caster by 30%. It increases proportional to target's lost health. So, there are some people that will probably see this as a nerf to Says, because you can only do it once every 3 turns. But now it triggers off of anyone else attacking. So it's kind of a little bit of give, a little bit of take. They took away the ability to do it multiple times. Says isn't exactly known for, if you get an S1 off, they're probably already dead because you've already S3'd and they're probably down to like 2 or 3 units. But being able to proc off of any other ally's turn is pretty nice. People that use Says will have to let me know, but I think this sounds pretty good. But again, I don't use him, so I'm not the most familiar with what to do in regards to this. Seems fine. Sucks that he can't do it more than once every 3 turns, but not bad. Elena, her S2 now dispels. Wait. Oh, this is her exclusive equipment. So instead of her second equipment cleansing another debuff off of the S3, now it dispels a debuff when she uses her S2. And this applies before healing, so they're just cleaning that up. Now she has actual Doctor's Bag as a skill, or as an exclusive equipment. So basically, she mugged Ray, took his wallet, took his Doctor's Bag, and is just sitting in a corner of her home waiting for Ray to knock on the door and be like, hey, can I have my stuff back? Also, I love you. So it seems pretty good. I know a lot of people are using Elena nowadays. Not bad, not bad. Getting the cleanse immediately is very useful. We're gonna skip Mort for now, just because there's a lot. He should get his own video, honestly, but we're gonna skip Mort for now. We'll come back to Mort. This is me being like, hey, watch to the end of the video, or skip to the end of the video if you want to see Mort. Yoha, my darling, now she always reflects damage. It doesn't have to be a single attack. When she is attacked, reflects 40% of the damage suffered to the attacker. Wonderful. No longer single target. No longer... Oh, I love this so much. This is so good. I love this. Her S3 has been shortened by 1 turn, and her soul burn now increases the damage dealt. So it's essentially more like Laya's, but it doesn't give her an extra turn, which is fine. You need to be careful around Shu, you need to be careful around DDR, you need to be careful around Ravi, Ilanov, anyone that injures. Same old thing. I feel like this is still a step in the right direction. I love Yolha. She was one of my most picked units before DDR and Shu took over, because I adore her. My lovely crazy bitch. Seems like a good step in the right direction, but again, injury really kills her. But I like it. I'm a fan of it. Blitica, her S3 now penetrates the target's defense by 50%. That's it. I don't know if she will still be good, or if she will be good because of this, but it's making her a little bit more consistent of all of the 3 times she's used per day. So, good for Blitica. I'm happy for you. I should use her, but I don't. Maybe I'll use her more. Who knows? 4 stars. Alots. His his S2 now goes from 2 turns to 4 turns. So Spirit's Breath is no longer good on him. Granting exploiting weak points and increased attack. Exploiting weak points is something I think Ryza has? Ryza? I don't remember what exactly it does, but it does something. And then his S3 has a 80% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns as opposed to silence, because he's an opener. They gotta have decreased defense in there somewhere. It's in their contract. They physically cannot avoid it. But hey, Spirit's Breath, no longer the best artifact for him, so he's a mage, so book it is. Great. And the reason they're changing that is because they're changing how extra turns work, so they needed to get rid of him, essentially. So the biggest thing with him was that he would S2, push someone up, S2, push someone up, S2, push someone up, S2, push someone up. And this is all PvP. Or PvE. Sorry. This is PvE. So like Hall of Trials, Abyss. He's very much a cheese unit specifically for PvE. This is going to make him more PvP focused as opposed to PvE. Because, like it or not, he is used a lot in PvE to kind of cheese stuff. That's just who he is. So I have no problem with them making it a bit more PvP focused, even though I know at its core it's a PvE game. I don't want to look at RTA. Unfortunately for you, I know you don't want to look at RTA, but a lot of people do look at RTA and play RTA. So making a unit slightly more PvP focused is not a damnation of PvE. You'll be okay. You guys will find cheeses. You always have. You always will. But I'm okay with it. You will get a recall for him, which is nice. If you have Aza, a 4-star unit like Infinite Horizons Acades that you want to get, you can sell your lots, which is a thing you can actually do, and that's a sentence that makes sense. Sell your lots. And you can get an Infinite Horizons Acades or an LPK, or I will probably get rid of him and get an LPK because I do not use him. So yeah, pretty nice. Furious. Now he just gets an extra attack as opposed to a 40% chance. So he's more consistent. His S2 increases speed and defense of all turns. Indomitable is just gone. And you can extend those buffs by 1 turn if you soul burn. His S3 penetrates target defense by 60%. Just flat. It's good. I still don't think he's great, but step in the right direction. Veronica, she really hates immortality. At the end of someone's turn, when the enemy is granted immortality, it increases her combat readiness by 50%. Get wrecked immortality. Pretty all right. Armin. Now, whenever an ally, including herself, is attacked by a single attack, it decreases the damage by 30%. Instead of 20%. Wonderful. So she has a bit more damage mitigation for single target attacks specifically, and that includes herself, which is lovely. That's really her only change. I don't know that this will help all too much, but it might. Cruel Mischief is now changing from 15 to 30% for damage dealt to increases attack in the Hall of Trials by 20-40%. This artifact skill can only apply to one hero within a team. I'm surprised it didn't already have that limitation, but it's fine. Pure White Trust. Instead of increasing the speed of the caster for 2 turns and the crit damage for the next turn by 15 to 30%, it gains 10 souls and has a 50 to 100%, depending on how well you have it, chance to increase the critical hit damage of the caster for 2 turns, so you get the buff. Soul can only be acquired once, but the critical hit damage can be acquired anytime you do a non-attack skill. So yeah, I mean, the crit damage doesn't have a limitation. The soul can only be gained once. Pretty alright. Don't know who uses this artifact, but maybe it'll see more use now. Could be like Rimuru. Rimuru can use it. Zahak, I guess. RNL. Hey, did you guys ever want RNL to do more damage? Well, here you go. Increases attack by 10%. However, they are changing how it works, so we'll go over that in a second. But RNL are being improved to be more effectively utilized by attack-based heroes. Bran, you son of a bitch. Hostess of the Banquet. When attacking, increases damage dealt by 5 to 10%. Okay. And when the target's health is 50% or more, increases damage dealt by an additional 4 to 8%. So this essentially is just increasing it. So you get a flat 5 to 10%. Always. Based on how high you have the artifact maxed. So let's just say 10%. You get a flat 10% always regardless. But if they have 50% or more HP, it increases that to an 8%. So 18% for 50% or more. Anything below 50% HP will take 10% damage. Additional damage. Seems good. I'm glad they didn't touch the effect res. As for the battle system, so how the effect works before, if an extra turn occurs twice or more in one turn, extra turns will continue to occur in subsequent turns. That is how you get stuff like, oh god, what's the biking one? S2, S1, S3, S1, S2, S1? I think Corinne can do the same thing as that. But this will stop like Ran from doing, as I said earlier, S2, S3, S1, S1. That just will not happen anymore. Which is great. And as a result, RNL is being recalled, which I have a plus 30 RNL and a plus 21 RNL that I am not using. So if that gives me 6 to 9 bottles, depending if you can only sell one or recall one as opposed to all of them, I will take those 6 bottles and I will run to the fucking market with it. That is great because I don't use RNL because I don't use openers. So happy to see this. And no, I have never summoned for anything that had like RNL on like a Covenant summon. I think some of the Mystics had it when I pulled for those units, but I wasn't going for them. RNL just showed up to me. Like, hold on. I'll show you. I know, we have to go back for Mort, but like... I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this. I literally don't use either of this. Like, this one's on Penelope because, haha, funny, I don't use Penelope, but, like, I didn't ask for this. If I get bottles, I will have so many Elbrises, and it will be so funny. I don't know which one I chose. I will have to put music in the background of this because it's just silence and me talking, which is miserable. I think that is all of the main changes. Yep, okay, time to talk about Mort. Oh, God. He seems pretty good. So he no longer gets enraged, which is fine. He does ignore effect res of any targets that have max health lower than the attacker's max HP. So most Soul Weavers, most damage dealers, the only ones that he can't do that to are units with high HP. Like Laya, Yolha, Ilanov, etc. So he's also susceptible to injury, but he always has been, so it's not that surprising. His S1 does do more damage, though, which is pretty nice. His S2, he is now immune to debuffs which prevent movement, so essentially stun and sleep, but with the updated wording of it. All heroes, except for the caster, cannot counterattack. Period. Knackle, go home. Abyssal Euphine, time to switch back to Holy Sack. Ugh. It's such a nice sentence to see. However, this does invalidate Astromancer Elena completely. Like, just pick Mort. Just pick Mort. He's fine. He's better. When an ally is attacked, missing a C because they don't know how to write. When an ally is attacked, including himself, has a 20% chance to counterattack, and after counterattacking has a 100% chance to use Sacred Blessing. Sacred Blessing can only be activated once every 3 turns, gives everybody a skill null, and increases his speed for 2 turns. So he has built-in AOL or Ilanov's CR pushing passive, but for counterattacking. So he has a built-in counter set and Elbrus. So you do not need to put him on Elbrus, which is awesome. Skill null, I feel, is more useful than crit resist because crit resist is a failure of a buff. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. His S3, Advent Mortalix, has a lot of green text. First off, it acquires 3 souls instead of 2. Its cooldown is being increased to 4 turns as opposed to 3 turns. The damage dealt is increasing, and the healing is increasing. Wonderful. So what does he do? He no longer injures. He inflicts fear for 2 turns before recovering health of the caster. Penetrates defense of the enemy with the highest max HP by 70% and ignores effect resistance of any target with max HP lower than the caster's max health. Damage dealt and amount recovered increase proportional to the caster's max health. What is fear? Fear means you cannot act for a certain number of turns. At the start of the turn has a 40% chance to be dispelled. This is RNG stun. Do you like sleeping in Pokemon where it has a set percentage to just be nullified at the first turn? This is that. My biggest question with this is, will it proc ML Sharoon? Because she prevents and cleanses any debuff that prevents movement. This technically prevents movement. So they may have to let us know how this interacts with Sharoon. Because I want to say that it will cleanse it and give her the buff. But Smilegate is known for being dumb and forgetting things, so they could very well just not do that. We'll have to see. But he seems pretty freaking good. If I'm honest, I'm excited for him. I'm not excited for Fear, because unless I have ML Sharoon, we all know how this would go for me, insofar as I will use him, and then all of my opponents will wake up from fear on the first turn. Or I will have my opponent pick Mortalix against me, and I will be stuck there not doing anything for the max number of turns. So, I hate Fear because it's RNG stun, and I have awful luck. So, I don't like Fear. I think it's stupid. Just give him stun. Just give him stun. It would have been so much better. RNG stun is just asking for people to get upset. But overall, I love Mort's buffs as a whole. Fear is dumb, but what are you going to do? So I'm excited for a lot of these units. I might actually build Silverblade Araminta, just go full effectiveness. I've already rebuilt my Mort. I don't care about Elena. Says I don't use. Melissa is a joke. I don't have Kayron. Dilibet, I'm very excited to be able to use more. Commander Pavel, I don't have. Last Rider Crow, I'm excited for him to come back into the meta because he kind of died for a while because Genoa exists. And then I'll have to build Silverblade Araminta. I might also build Ruel. I'm excited for a lot of these units to come back. And also to get like 6 bottles from my RNL. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, because obviously I don't use all of these units. Let me see what your opinions on them are. It's always great to see. You know, a discussion can't happen unless there's people with opposite opinions of yours. So if you don't like any of these buffs, let me know why. I'd love to hear from you. We can have a discussion down in the comments. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you like these types of things from me. I know I have a great narration voice, but I'm not going to be talking like that the whole time because it hurts my throat. But hopefully you enjoyed this. Again, no fear-mongering. Aggro's fine. Cleave's fine. Standard's fine. You're all going to be fine. The world is not ending because these units are getting buffs. Anyway, love you all. Have a great day.